Hey guys, Dowsey here, and today we are going to be breaking down the different killers in Dead by Daylight and rating them from S tier down to E tier, so you guys know my opinions of who the strongest killers are, who the weakest killers are, and who's kind of middle of the pack. Now, before I start making this video, what I want to, get out of the way is that I'm rating these killers at red ranks, at rank 1 versus rank 1 survivors. So that means that I'm expecting these killers to be played by a rank 1 killer, which means that they have some good ability to play the game, and they have some good ability to know how to play each killer's kit well, especially because certain killers are played very differently to other killers. And also that the survivors that they're going to be playing versus also have a decent amount of game knowledge. Now, I'm not talking about the best survivors in the game. If you were to take, 4 brother copes and put them on a survivor team at rank 1, then it doesn't matter which killer you're playing, you're probably not getting a 4K. However, at rank 1, most survivors know what they're doing, but they also make mistakes as well. So that's something that you have to keep in mind, is that whilst red rank survivors are good, they're not gods at the game, and you're going to get some foreheads on a red rank team, as well as some good players. So I guess with that out of the way, let's talk about the killers from strongest down to weakness. And of course, we have to start with everybody's favorite nurse here. She is the strongest killer in the game. By far, there is no question about it. Nurse's strengths are that she has insane chase potential. She's able to essentially blink on top of a survivor and get an M1 from that. She has insane map mobility. She can cross map very quickly. And essentially, if a killer has mastered Nurse's mechanic, it doesn't really matter what tricks you have up your sleeve as a survivor to try and beat the nurse. She's probably going to catch you at some point down the line. Obviously, her weaknesses are that she has a very unique mechanic that you do have to learn. It's very difficult to learn that. And I guess if you're inexperienced, there's some tracking issues as well, because you spend a lot of the time looking down due to the blink fatigue. But those are things that anyone who has experience playing nurse have overcome. They've learned her mechanic, they've learned how to track, they use perks that help them track, and she has the most potential in the right hands to just completely destroy a game. Nurse is above survivors, essentially, in this game, and she gets her own little tier because of that. So let's move on to the A tier. And in the A tier, I guess I don't really care about the order I put people in, just for a heads up, but I am going to kind of do it in what I think is strength order. And I'm going to put Spirit next into the A tier. So second, Spirit has ridiculous chase potential, up there with Nurse, honestly. I'm someone who's been playing Spirit since her release, and for a long time, I feel like I was one of the best Spirits streaming the game. I've definitely taken a big break from Dead by Daylight. I wouldn't consider myself that anymore, but compared to the people I watched who I considered good killers, I felt like I was doing better stuff than they were. Spirit is dumb. Anyone who plays red ranks consistently will tell you that Spirit is one of the most common killers that they play against. A Spirit is able to track you using so many different tools. Obviously, there's scratch marks in the phase walk. There's your cries of pain. There's footsteps. There's grass movement. There's shrubbery movement. There's particle effects. There's so many things that Spirit can track you with. So it doesn't matter if a survivor's running Iron Will. I'm sure you guys have seen from watching my Twitch stream. I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. All different killers. You can come and request a killer. And whenever you watch me play Spirit, we play against Iron Will survivors all the time. But because footsteps are a thing, because shrubbery is a thing, because game experience is a thing, we always end up blinking within 5 meters of the survivor, because we're able to track through our experience playing Spirit. A good Spirit will just win a chase. There's not much you can do against her. You can run Iron Will and potentially hope that she comes out of blink late, or phase walk out of a late, which means that she won't have as much chance of landing on top of you. But a good Spirit is just going to land on top of you. She's going to guarantee M1s. Her weaknesses, of course, are that she has low mobility. She's a 110% movement speed killer, or 4.4 meters per second. And that does mean that when she's not phase walking, she's slow. And that mobility does hurt her. However, a good Spirit's not going to rely on running a survivor. They're going to rely on their phase walk. They're going to be able to blink to get either in range for a hit or blink to cut off a survivor from a loop, which will allow them to get a hit within 5 seconds. And honestly, a chase should never last longer than 60 seconds with a spirit. She should be able to down you very quickly. She is the most abusive killer to play versus, I feel, when playing Survivor. And the thing is, her add-ons make her even better. I play Spirit without add-ons when I play Spirit, but when I play Spirit with add-ons, it's like playing easy mode. Prayer Beads is the dumbest add-on I've ever experienced, and I used to run it all the time as a killer when it first came out. But then you take her amulets, you take her Wakizashi Super, you take her Dirty Umaki, you take her charge speed add-ons and just pair them, make creations. She's dumb. She's super strong, and that's the reason I'm putting her up here in second. All right. Everyone's best Billy boy comes in at third here. I don't think there's any contest for Billy being third. There's currently a big debate whether or not Billy is second or third. I will place him third at red ranks because of the fact that Billy's strength comes from his massive amount of mobility. I think he goes at 270% movement speed in the chainsaw, which is ridiculous. That's really fast. That's the fastest killer consistently. Nurse blinks at like 300 something percent, but she has the fatigue. Billy's a constant 270%. So he has the most ability to get from A to B out of all of the killers, and that's a huge plus for a killer. Mobility is a big thing. Of course, the insta down on Billy's chainsaw is a big thing as well, and you are going to get games, even at red ranks, where Billy cross maps into a survivor. It happens all the time. However, the chances of that happening are slim in comparison to, the survivor actually being aware of you coming, and then the chase begins. And when a chase begins, most survivors at this point, because Billy's been out for the longest of times, he's been out since the beginning of the game, most survivors at this point are fairly comfortable with looping a Billy. They know that they have to drop pallets. They know that they have to respect the chainsaw curve. They know that all of Billy's tricks. There's no many tricks that Billy can pull off that a survivor isn't going to have experienced before. And so while some of the best Billies, talking about Zubat, talking about Nightmare, a Spanish player in the EU, whilst these Billies are really good and they can curve and they can end chases quickly, that skill is ridiculously hard to pull off. It's harder, in my opinion, than Nurse blinking and Spirit phase walking. And for that reason, the chances are that a Billy is going to end a chase very quickly with his M2, his chainsaw, is low. And so then becomes an M1 killer. He relies on perks like Spirit Fury and Enduring to end chases quicker. And I think for that reason, Billy is third on the tier list. Those weaknesses kind of hurt him quite a bit. And at a high rank, whilst he's going to be very successful, he's going to have a lot of map mobility and map pressure. I don't think he is quite as abusive and to play versus as a Spirit or a Nurse is. So Billy's a really strong killer, and of course he's free, which is great. Let's move on to our next killer, and I don't know what order I want to do it in, but what I do know is this is where we move down to B tier, which I've labeled high mid tier. As you see, I've got 6 tiers here: God tier, high mid tier, low mid tier, low tier, and trash tier. And that way you guys get a good idea, because you often go into a stream and ask a killer player or a streamer, hey, what is the tier list? And they'll go, oh, high tier, mid tier, low tier, without too much thinking about it. So what I've done is I've develop my tier list to match that idea, so that you guys can get an idea of what killers may end up in different places. So I don't think any other killer is quite on Spirit and Billy tier, and because of that I need to move down to the next one, and I'm struggling right now where I want to place them. We've just had Freddy come out with his rework, and I think Freddy is a super strong killer. He has extremely high mobility. In theory, he can cross map faster than any other killer if the generator is in the right position. Of course, though, he is then relying on generators to get around the map. Pair him with Pop Goes the Weasel. He is very, very good at controlling gens. If you wanted to run Ruin as well, that's almost abusive to play versus. You have Pop and Ruin. It's going to slow down the game quite a lot. Then you put jump ropes on and swing chains, which is going to reduce the repair speed of the survivors. And it's very difficult to get stuff done versus Freddy. Currently, with his kit, snares are stronger than dream pallets, due to the fact that a snare is going to win you a chase now, whereas a dream pallet may win you a chase later. And I prefer winning chases now, which is going to give me more pressure in the game, over the idea of potentially winning a chase later. You have to break pallets for dream pallets to become effective. The ones you can set up at the beginning of the game aren't going to be as effective as the ones you can set up once certain pallets have been dropped. Freddy's chase potential is really strong. With a Dream Snare, you can shut down really strong loops and force the pallets down early, which is good because you don't want to run those loops for very long. And then on medium strength loops or weak loops, you just win those chases. You get that M1 or down. And then with the teleport, it allows you to get around the map, control the generators quite quickly. I think that's a really big aspect, by the way, as a killer player. Being able to control generators across map is a huge thing, as much as winning chases are. And so for that reason, I'm probably going to put Freddy here at the top of the B tier. I guess his weakness is that the Dream Protection isn't going to get you an M1. It's going to only really allow you to kick a generator and then initiate a chase. But his snares, I think, are fairly strong. And so the survivors are going to end up in the Dream mold most of the time during the game. And when they do, that's going to essentially allow Freddy to have repair speed control, as well as Pop Goes the Weasel control. And if you wanted to really double down on generator control with Ruin, I think he's really good. Next is Haggy Girl. We just uploaded a video on how to play Hag, and I think she's really underrated. She's a difficult killer to learn because she doesn't really rely on chases as much as she does her power, and she has probably the strongest hook control in the game. A Spirit can be pretty good, a Billy can be pretty good, a Nurse can be pretty good, but I think a Hag has the most immediate oomph to her hook control. She's very power reliant. You need to be placing your traps down. You need to constantly have trap pressure out. And if you don't have trap pressure out, then you are a weak killer. You are 4.4 meters per second, you're 110% movement speed, and you're in trouble, basically, if you don't have more than 5 traps out at any given time. And you can see in that video that we uploaded, how this is how you play Hack. We were constantly trying to get as many traps out as possible, and you just lay them down wherever, because survivors will walk into them if you're controlling an area. She has the highest area control in the game, and once you learn her playstyle, she's very abusive to play versus. Now, her weakness is that she is directly countered by a flashlight, because a survivor can bring a flashlight in and they can basically burn up her traps without her being able to teleport to them. And so if you have a survivor basically following you around burning your traps, she becomes so frustrating to play, very difficult, and it can be tilting. And if you guys play competitive games, you know how much a mental aspect to the game is important. If you get tilted, you're going to make bad decisions and you're going to lose the game. So I think Hag has a lot of strengths, and I think she is probably safely placed here in the high to mid tier, but I don't feel comfortable placing her any higher than this, with Freddy coming out and having a little bit more guarantee in his control over Hag, which relies on placing traps. Next, we're going to place Huntress into the tier list. And I think this is a fair placement for Huntress. There are a lot of good Huntress players out there. I'm one of them, I would say. And I think if you watch really good Huntress players play the game, you kind of get the idea that she might be the strongest killer in the game, because she has some insane chase potential. Really good chase potential. She's able to end chases almost instantly with a double hatchet toss. However, she is the slowest killer in the game. Not literally, because Nurse is literally the slowest killer in the game when she walks, but Huntress is 110% movement speed killer, 4.4 meters per second. And when she uses her power, her hatchets, she slows down to a snail's pace. So in my opinion, she's the slowest killer in the game when you're actually playing her properly. Now, that doesn't mean that she's impossible to play, but if you ever go up against a very experienced survivor who understands what loops Huntress can throw hatchets over and what loops she can't, she is just not fun to play. And she's very map reliant as well. Certain maps are atrocious to play. They have very few walls that you can throw hatchets over at short loops, making her just a 110% movement speed killer that has to disrespect pallets, that has to essentially rely on a survivor mistake to get chase wins. And for that reason, I'm going to place her lower than I think a lot of people tend to believe she is. I think really good Huntress players make her look amazing. But I think she's very map reliant. She has almost 70%, 60% of the maps that are bad for her, and that's too many for her to be placed any higher than this. Honestly, you could place her here and the argument would be justified. But I don't want to do that because I think in the right hands, a Huntress is going to end chases relatively quickly, and ending chases quickly is important. In the right hands, a Huntress is going to have some ability to cross-map hatchet toss. I think they're more rare than they are common. But when you do land a cross-map hatchet toss, the amount of pressure you suddenly gain is ridiculous. So it's with a heavy heart that I place Huntress at the bottom of the high mid tier. But I think honestly, there's a justification to be made to put her in the low mid tier. But I'm not going to do that. All right, what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 killers. 2 more before we hit the halfway mark. Who do we want to go first? And do we think anyone else is in the high mid tier? Is the question. I don't think we do. I think we're moving down to low mid tier here. And in low mid tier, I think I am going to place Myers. Yes, Myers first. Myers, a lot of people think he's one of the strongest killers in the game. I've seen people place him like up here. I'm not quite sure that's the case. At the start of the game, you are very slow. You're 105% movement speed. I'm not exactly sure what that is in meters per second. In tier 1. Now you do have a tiny terror radius. I think it's 8 meters at tier 1. And so that tiny terror radius does allow you to creep up on survivors. Maybe you get a genuine. Maybe you get your tier 1 stalk very quickly. But a lot of survivors, they're very, very good at observing. And I find that when I play Myers, even if I approach a group of survivors from a fairly stealthy direction, they end up spotting me and they end up starting to evade me before I can stalk out my tier 1. Once he hits tier 2, he goes up to 115% movement speed, which is regular 4.6. And he also has a 16 meter terror radius. Now, if you pair him with like monitor and abuse, you can reduce that down to 8 meters, and you can reduce your tier 1 terror radius down to 0 meters, which is really good, very strong. So he's got some stealth element to him. He can creep up on survivors. The main strength for Myers comes when he hits his tier 3. He gets that insta down with his M1. It lasts for 60 seconds, I think, without add-ons. And he also has an extended lunge speed, which means that he can lunge farther than any other killer in the game, as well as having a faster vault speed as well. And so for that reason, when he's in tier 3, he is very threatening. He's got the insta down, he can vault faster, and he can hit you from further away. It's a very strong kit. But that setup time can be countered by a really good survivor. And if you just have a really bad start to the game, let's say all 4 survivors spawn on separate gens, you find one of them on a generator and you stalk them up to tier 1, then you chase them a little bit, get your tier 2 off them, you're not going to be able to pop tier 3 off them, chances are. And so then you have to find a second survivor who's also on a generator by themselves, and at that point, you're in a bit of trouble. So I actually think that Myers can be easily countered compared to other killers. And a group survivor group is just going to walk all over him. It's really rough to play versus. So I think he has a lot of strength, but he can have really bad games, really bad starts. And that consistency is something that hurts his overall strength for me. Actually, because of that, I'm going to bring Ghostface in, and I'm going to place Ghostface over Myers. Ghostface, most recent killer added to the roster if you discount the Freddy rework. And they both have very similar kits. They really do. Both are stalking killers. Both can expose a survivor for an insta down. But what Ghostface has over Myers is he has the most stealth potential in the game. The stealth killers in this game are Myers, they're Pig, they're Rafe. But I think that Ghostface has the most control over his stealth element. You press M2, you lose your terror radius, you lose your red light, you can crouch, you can move around the map fairly stealthily. And if you get yourself into a good position on a group of survivors with a good lean, then you're going to be able to get that mark on 1 or 2 survivors instantly. And that mark with the insta down is so strong. But let's say you don't get that mark on the survivor. Instead, let's say you find a survivor at a generator working with a friend, and you stalk them up quite high, but then they both see you and break you out. You go after one of them and hit them. That will remove your stalk progress, but then eventually you're going to get your power back again. And once you get your power back, you can instantly activate it. your red light is going to turn off. And turning off your red light is really huge in chases. You should be able to guarantee an M1 straight off that. Loop dependent, obviously. You need wars. Realistically, but even without wars, like if you crouch correctly at a loop and just hide your general body, the survivor has to make a judgment call about where you're going to come from. And more times than not, I find survivors run into me when I have my red light off. So I think that Ghostface has a little bit more consistency. I run him with double power recovery add-ons. That's Chewed Pen and Olsen's address book, I think it is. And it's really strong because you get your power back really quickly. It means you don't have to worry as much about stalking mid-chase. You can stalk when you find the survivor, and then if they run away, it's whatever. I'm going to place Ghostface above Myers for now because I think that Myers' early game can just hurt him so hard, whereas Ghostface has a little bit more consistency in that department. Let's move on to the next killer that I don't know. I don't know if I want to put Myers above Plague or not. I actually am. I'm going to put Myers above Plague. The reason being that Plague has a lot of strength. She can vomit on the generators, which will contaminate them. When a generator is contaminated, it's contaminated for 35 seconds without add-ons. So that's 35 seconds that a survivor doesn't want to touch the generator if they're not already infected. Now, if a survivor is infected, they're obviously going to work the generator. And the way you play Plague, if you ever come into my streams, again, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, I love to play a bit of the Vommy Mummy. We play with Corrupt Intervention, which is going to block 3 generators furthest away from us. That means that we only have to control 4 generators for the first 2 minutes of the game. And we can vomit on those generators to basically stop the survivors from hopping on them. So we can actually have 2 minutes of no gen progress. That's huge. No gen progress. 0 gen progress for 2 minutes. Now, what we do during those 2 minutes is we try and infect the survivors instead of initiate chases. And so if we can get all of the survivors infected and then we start chasing the 4th survivor once they're infected and we break them very quickly, then we start the snowball. You want all 4 survivors infected before you really commit to a chase. Then once they're infected, they become broken. They can't heal. They're a one-shot down. And you should just be able to snowball from there. What will happen, even at red ranks very consistently, is one survivor will panic. And once they panic, they go cleanse. And once they cleanse, all of the other survivors go, fuck, now we have to cleanse too. Because this guy has given Plague her a massive amount of strength. The corrupt Plague power, which allows her to vomit a projectile that will injure you. And once one survivor freaks out and panics and they cleanse, the rest of the survivors cleanse. And what you can then do is you can use up your corrupt Plague power, and then you can essentially reinfect them. And once they're reinfected, then you get your second usage of that power whilst they're all broken again. And the cycle continues. The survivors snowball heavily in your favor. I find Plague to be really strong. However, here's her weaknesses. Good survivors won't cleanse. And what does that mean for the survivors? Well, it does mean that they're a one-shot down, but it also means they're not wasting 16 seconds or even 32 seconds self-caring or healing. And so that time is instead going into generator progress. Instead of healing, they're doing gens. And so that means that gens will pop quicker. You have to have a lot of map control and map knowledge and good chase potential to play Plague, because good survivors will not cleanse until the end of the game. And so you do need to at least apply pressure. I think that the strategy that I run and a lot of good players run, which is just controlling those 4 gens for the first 2 minutes with Corrupt Intervention, causes survivors to panic, because they spend 2 minutes not doing a generator and they freak out. They're like, how are we going to win this game? There's literally been 0 gens pop, and then they're like, we need to cleanse. So you need to kind of snowball that fear into the weakest survivor. But obviously not having 16 seconds or 32 seconds of heal time wasted can be really good for the survivors, and they can pop gens like crazy. So yeah, she's a really fun killer, very unique playstyle as well. All right, let's move on to the next C tier killer. I'm going to place Piggy there. I love my Pig. She's one of my favorite killers, but I think she is low mid tier. The reason being is that Pig is she's kind of dependent on her stealth. A lot of players who don't play Pig very regularly will tell you that Pig is the worst killer because she is RNG dependent. And that's true to some extent. Her main power is her jigsaw boxes and the reverse bear traps that you put on a survivor's head. And the way they work is that when you put a reverse bear trap on a survivor's head, when a generator is powered, the bear trap activates and the survivor has 2 minutes to get it off their head, or else it will kill them. And at red ranks, you don't get bear trap kills very often. It just doesn't happen. A survivor is either going to start taking the trap off before it is active, or they're going to get the 1 in 4 chance that they find the right jigsaw box before the 2 minutes goes up. And even if they have to search all 4 boxes, on most maps, they have enough time to do that. So Pig's power, in my opinion, doesn't come from her jigsaw boxes. I think it's strong. I think it's a gen slowing tool, but I don't think it's her main power. I think her main power is her stealth and her dash. We play Pig with Monitor and Abuse and Whispers, which allows us to have a 24-meter terror radius instead of 32-meter terror radius. And then with Whispers being a 32-meter perk, as soon as it turns on, you crouch. The crouch fades away your terror radius. Because you've reduced your terror radius to 24 meters, the survivor's never going to hear the heartbeat of the killer. And then you can approach a generator and you can get that M1 on a survivor. Getting a first M1 on a survivor is very strong. And the reason that I place Pig higher than other killers who can get that first M1 like Rafe is because her dash attack will allow you to win a chase at a medium strength loop or a weak loop. You can sit in the pallet, you can charge, you can moonwalk dash, which is a technique that you should go watch Scorpions on Twitch to find out, or you can ask me in Twitch chat. And you should be able to win chases with her like that. So if you're getting your first M1 fairly consistently for free, and then you're finding a dash attack to pair that, then you can end a chase pretty quickly with Pig. Then you put the trap on their head, then that slows down the generator progress because the survivor is spending those 2 minutes or however long it takes for them to get the bear trap off, hopefully more than 20 seconds. Getting that bear trap off it, they're not doing a generator for that time. And so that slows down the progress, allows you to snowball pressure with hooks rather than having to worry about generators. And so for that reason, I'm going to place Pig up here in the mid tier. We're down to 6 killers, guys. And this is where the tier list for me becomes a little bit muddied. Because I think it's hard to place these guys in to the different tiers and really have a strong distinction between what makes them low tier and what makes them trash tier. So take this with a grain of salt. We're going to start with Rafe. Like I said, I love Rafe. He's one of my favorite killers. And honestly, I could put him up here in the low mid tier, but I think for all the reasons I just described with Pig, I don't think I can justify having him on the same tier as Pig. I think that he has that first hit potential, but after that, he just has to run loops. And so you rely on chase perks like Enduring Spirit, Fury, and Brutal Strength to win those chases a little bit quicker, because a good survivor is going to loop you to oblivion on Rafe. He's all about the mind games. He's all about moonwalking. He's all about catching a survivor off guard. I think he's very fun. With Windstorm Add-ons and Barbecue and Chili or Thrilling Tremors, you're going to be able to cross-map and use Pop Goes the Weasel fairly successfully. You should be able to guarantee a first M1 with his stealth, but then you're on your own. You don't have a power to help you win a chase. And so Rafe is good. I think he's quite fun, but his weaknesses is that, his second hit potential is very weak, and he doesn't have that chase potential. So he can be very difficult to make work at high ranks. Who should we put second? It's a hard one. I really don't know. Maybe I should work from the bottom up now so that I have some distinction. Because I think that Doctor is like the worst killer in the game. One of the worst killers. And I play a relatively okay Doctor. And I've played versus relatively okay Doctors. But for me, his main power is annoyance. He's just annoying to play versus. Yes, a good Doctor is going to shock you correctly, and he's going to be able to stop you vaulting a window, vaulting a pallet, dropping a pallet. It can happen. You pair him with Bamboozle, and you can create some brick walls by blocking off the window and then shocking them, blocking off the window. They can't vault the pallet. You can block off Shack, for example. But for me, the amount of pinpoint position you need to land a shock at the correct timing to stop a survivor being able to do a loop, it's just too much. You have to play him to almost pixel perfect levels to get some good strength out of him. And I think he's weak for that reason. I don't think he has any map control. I think he has some chase potential, but I don't think his chase potential is strong enough to place him into the D tier. He can be fun to play. Doc mains are going to hate me. I don't care. I think he's fairly weak, and I think he's one of the most outdated killers that we have in the game right now. I don't think he really matches the current game style that the game has, and I would love to see a Doctor rework come into play. We've got Bubba here, Leatherface the Cannibal, and I think I'm going to place Leatherface into D tier. People love to put him at the bottom of the tier list, but the one thing that Leatherface has over the other 6 killers that are going to be placed into this low and trash tier is a one-shot down. One-shot down can be really effective. If a Leatherface was wanting to face camp or patrol a hook, you can't unhook without going down yourself. And potentially your teammate going down as well if you don't have borrowed time. Like Leatherface, yes, he's a weak chaser. He can lose chases. Or just basically be a pallet chomping machine. If you do run into a slightly weaker survivor who drops pallets instantly, then he can be pretty strong because you can waste a lot of pallets quite early, and then the map becomes barren, and then all of your chases become instant shots, one-shot downs. But that's a circumstance that might happen. It might not always happen. So I think Leatherface is player dependent. If you go up against some slightly weaker survivors, he's going to be okay. If you go up against some slightly stronger survivors, he's going to struggle to get that first down, which means you're not going to be able to establish the hook pressure that allows you to control gen speed. And for that reason, I'm going to put him here and not in trash tier because of the one-shot down. That's the only reason he's in D tier over E tier. Next up, let's do Clown Boy. And I'm going to put Clown in the E tier as well. I think Clown could have been considered D tier until Freddy came along, and Freddy basically said, hey, I do the exact same thing as you, but better. Because both of them have a power that hinders the survivor's movement speed, hinders their ability to fast vault, snares versus the gas. The thing is that Freddy is a token system. He doesn't have to reload his snares. Clown has 4 bottles, and they have to be reloaded. If you are to add add-ons onto Clown, such as an exhaustion add-on, and don't do that. I will literally disown you. Exhaustion add-ons are trash. Don't run them. Well, okay. They are scummy. They're scummy add-ons in my opinion. They come from a time when the game it made sense in the game, but it doesn't make any sense anymore. They need to be reworked by the developers as a priority in my opinion. But if you were to run exhaustion add-ons on Clown, then maybe he could be considered higher because the survivors don't have dead hard or balance landing or life to effectively escape the Clown. And yeah, at certain loops, the gas is going to allow you to get the survivor chase ending fairly quickly. But he doesn't have any map pressure, and he doesn't really have much hook pressure either compared to like a Leatherface. And for that reason, I think I'm going to put him on the trash tier. This is the hardest decision I have to make, is where to put Trapper. Because I don't really think he's quite as bad as Doctor and Clown. But is he as good as Rafe and Leatherface? I don't know. Okay, I'm going to put him on D tier. The reason being is that I think a good Trapper can snowboard game with excellent trap placements. I'm going to be uploading a video soon. It's going to be a duo POV, me versus a streamer who was playing Survivor, and I think you'll see that good trap placements can win you a game against good survivors as well. He's inconsistent. He can be very inconsistent. He can be very hit and miss. But a lot of the times when I play Trapper, I usually get a 3k or a 4k due to good trap placements, due to good gen control, pop goes the weasel, and the snowball element that can happen with a Trapper, you can go from losing a game to winning a game like that. If it traps all come into play, and it happens, you do snowball. With good trap placement, it's a matter of time. The biggest aspect is time with Trapper. Can you keep the game running long enough that your traps become effective enough to win you the game? That's the question with Trapper. I don't think he's trash tier, but I do think he could use a bit of quality of life updates. I'm not exactly sure how you would update Trapper to bring him into the meta and bring him closer to the low mid tier or the high mid tier. I don't think every killer needs to be God tier or high tier, but you kind of want them to be roughly in the B or C tier, and then they're a lot more enjoyable to play. But yeah, he can be very inconsistent. I just think that if you can keep the game running low enough, then you should win with Trapper. All right, it's Legion. Where do we place Legion is the main question. I've been saying for a long time that Legion is the weakest killer in the game, but they're like one of my favorites to play. I think I have to place them in the E tier as well, but I'm actually going to place them higher than Doc and Clown. Legion guarantees a first hit on any survivor, usually, with the Feral Frenzy power. And once you hit them with Feral Frenzy, Killer's Instinct activates, and any survivor that's in your terror radius will be revealed to you, their heartbeat and an aura showing you where they are. And that's a very strong aspect of Legion. Information killers are very strong when you can use them well, because they just give you so much ability to make decisions of how you're going to chase the survivors, which survivors you're going to chase, which survivors in a weaker part of the map. It can really just change the game, having that information for you. So I think Legion guarantees M1s, the first hit, which is good. But after that, he just becomes a regular M1 killer for the most part. A lot of survivors will mend, and I think mending takes 15 seconds to do without add-ons. So that's 15 seconds that you are keeping the survivors off a generator. So that's useful. But then a lot of survivors don't even bother healing versus Legion. They just leave once he gets close. He has a 32-meter terror radius. You can play relatively stealthy around him, and he kind of relies on his Feral Frenzy to find survivors if they want to play stealthy versus Legion. Yes, that can slow down the game somewhat, but it's not very much. 15 seconds it is not really that much, and then chances are a good survivor group at red ranks aren't going to bother healing versus Legion, and they're just going to stay injured so that they can work generators, because the 15 seconds is already detrimental enough that they don't want to spend another 16 seconds healing. Or 32 seconds if it's self-care, or 40 seconds if it's Sloppy Butcher. We run Sloppy Butcher on our Legion. So yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate. I liked Legion when they came out. I never played them abusively with the moonwalking strat. We always just played Legion how he was intended to be played by the developers. But of course, there are players who are going to exploit his kit, do the moonwalk tech. They had to change Legion. That change unfortunately brought him down in strength. But he does have, I guess, somewhat better chase potential, being a 115% movement killer than a 110% movement killer. It's just not enough, really, to have him higher, in my opinion, than he's here. You could argue that he's here in low tier because of the information aspect alone. And you know what? I would happily stick him in D tier behind all the other killers and just leave Doc and Clown down here in trash tier. I think that's fair, honestly, because the information aspect is just enough maybe to give him the edge over the Doc and over the Clown. But he's a killer that doesn't have many strengths other than his first hit potential and his information potential. And for that reason, I don't think Legion, or I say they, I don't think the Legion is as strong as they could be. Anyway, guys, I'm going to end it there, I think. I don't think I need to talk too much about the final results here. What do you guys think of this tier list? And of course, this is my opinion only. I play killer at rank 1. I play all killers at rank 1. I cycle through the killers. I try to play most killers without Ruin. I try to play most killers without their most strong add-ons as well. So I feel like I have a really good understanding of which killers' powers are stronger than others and how they can be, how they can play into the survivors and influence the game. But maybe you guys have a different opinion to me, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. Do any of these killers need a nerf? Do any of these killers need a buff? Start a conversation with me. And would you like to see more tier list videos in the future? Especially when the new killer comes out. We should be getting a new killer in about a month's time. Maybe a month and a half, maybe 2 months. Because we just had the mid-chapter updates. And that usually means the next killer is about a month and a half after that update. So we'll have another killer to throw into the tier list, as well as maybe some balance to adjust killers up and down. But yeah, that's it. That's my killer tier list for patch 3.12 now? I think it's 3.1.2. Yeah, that's it. All right, guys. I've been xDowsey. I stream Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. We make daily content here on YouTube as well. If you want to come and check me live, then click the link in the description below to come to my Twitch stream. And you can ask me more questions about my tier list there. Have a great one, guys. I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.